We're going to do a little recap of things since this company started, where it came from, where it's been, where it's going next year. Um, I'm kind of doing this for people who care. I appreciate your support, first of all. You kept this company going. And for myself, really mentally, I'm just trying to put this out there so I can hear it and kind of keep me focused going forward. Um, Lots happened in the past decade. Hell, lots happened in the past 3 decades, 30 years to lead up to this point here. There's a lot of history behind it. I don't really publicly, I don't do podcasts usually. I don't get online and do all that shit. So that's just me. I love listening to them, not knocking people who do that stuff. I wish I could do it. I just mentally can't. My mouth can't keep up with what my brain's thinking. So I got to sit here by myself with a lot of notes to kind of keep me focused, to keep this thing going. So, but yeah, so we'll just go over to kind of the brief beginning. Background military. Most people know I was a Navy SEAL. Retired out of Dev Group, SEAL Team 6. Did nearly a dozen deployments while just there. Very eventful deployments. I will say sustained combat deployments. We didn't sit around a lot waiting for shit to pop up. We went to where it was pretty sporty. And once we fucking killed everybody, we left and went somewhere else where the hunting was better. So during that time, I mean, how I got in military in 1996, straight out of high school. Went straight from Navy boot camp to Buds. From there, went to SDV. I'm not going to go into history, all this stuff. You guys seen it a million times on podcasts and all that good stuff. So I ain't going to recap all that. But I went straight to basically being a sniper. Recce. So back then we had these GPSs that were like this big. And while I was there, it switched over to Magellan. Came out with a big hunky consumer GPS. And back at that time, everybody was like in the mindset of like, yeah, those are cool, but you know, you still have to learn how to use a map and compass, because if that breaks, you need to be able to use a map and compass. At the same time, night vision was becoming a thing. It's hard to believe, but when I got in, we were walking around in the dark, running into trees and everything else. Yeah, it's hard for me to even think back then. And then when nods came out, I'm kind of getting off topic. When nods came out, we had the single nod tube was the kind of the ticket. Everybody thought, hey, you just want one eye covered because you still want that ability to see what's around you in the dark, in the pitch black. So looking back at that time, I mean, it was pre-war, nothing really going on for the first 10 years of my career. Well, first at least 6 or 7 years of my career, until 9/11 hit. But during that time, like I said, Garmin's were not around yet. Magellans were. And the mindset with nods and these GPS devices coming out that, well, you can't depend on those because if they break, or, you know, the Chinese block the satellites or something crazy, you need to still use a map and compass, which I can tell you I haven't used a map and compass in, I don't know, nearly 20 years now. And if my GPS broke, I would pull out my other GPS that I had on me. And if that broke, I'd pull out my third GPS I had on me, on my gun. And if those broke, I would grab one of the, 100 GPSs that my guys had on them behind me. And I'd use that. And yeah, so here we are today. A lot of those things kind of still come up in different forms today with the systems that we're using now. So it's kind of funny. It just kind of repeats that mindset. But here we are. Again, I'm not going to go over too much of that long history of, my 20-year career essentially led up to me finally screening and going to dev group, augmented Gold Squadron in 2005 to Iraq. And from there, I was sold. This is where I'm going. And, I'm not going to go into too much, but at that command, the innovation is unlimited. The budget is unlimited. What we were able to do as operators to go out on our own and source hardware, source technology, that was all done in-house by the guys in combat. Spent 10 years at the command in the squadron, didn't leave. 10 to 12 deployments if you want to count our blowout deployments. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that stuff, but I will say that my time there, I led most of the navigation technology that we were getting involved with. It was myself and like maybe 2 to 3 other guys at the entire command that were really geeked out with mission planning, high-end route planning, terrain study, analysis. We were bringing in outside folks from the civilian world that were into, geo, like mapping volcanoes. And you see all this technology now used in like finding old Mayan cities in the middle of the jungle and all that good stuff. But a lot of that stuff we brought in on our own. And a lot of these companies were just patriotic companies coming in to help us. The military had no idea what we were doing at that time and the level of capability that we had, honestly. So that led to, the iPhone came out in 07, 06, 07. Amongst all that, and all this heavy terrain analysis, which led to us being able to take a pretty powerful computer in the field with us versus what we were carrying with big Toughbook, like Panasonic Toughbook laptops in the field with us. So being able to put our navigation plan on something this small and this powerful, that was way more powerful than what a Garmin at that time could do or handle, was a pretty big deal. And again, it was myself and a couple other guys led the tablets and smartphones into the command. And when we did that, we got serious pushback. When big military and folks in DC heard that we were using smartphones and tablets operationally in the field, I remember the day they told us, you can't do that. You will never do that. Stop doing that. Fast forward, we convinced the command that this is going to happen. And it, in fact, became mission priority number 1 at the command, which then spread throughout the military. The amount of operations we were doing at that time, we were in combat, like I said, sustained combat. I led the first dirt bike missions. I actually launched the first one. Kind of funny story. My team leader at the time, a recce team leader at the time, he was all on board with it, but he was kind of hesitant to push it out the door, the dirt bike and UTV packages on these assaults. And kind of funny story, he left our base for a week. And during the time he left to go check out another camp, we had a mission pop up or target pop up. And my troop chief at the time was all for this. And I remember he came into the recce hut and he was like, "Hey, you think we can pull this off with the dirt bike package?" And I was like, fuck yeah, we can. So we launched it successfully. Again, this is based off the back of, you got to understand at that command, you can't fail. Like, that's not a freaking option. And I'm the one planning the route. So as a recce guy, you're planning what you're taking in as far as helicopter, where you're landing, you're figuring out that. The route you're going to take to target, you're figuring out that. And you're figuring out all the set points on target and containment. And there's a point there where you're basically walking into target with 3 to 4 recce guys with the main body kind of, a couple minutes behind you, giving you a head start to get to target and set containment on it so they can come in and assault it. So there's a lot on your plate as a recce guy at that command in that position. So again, I understand my team leader's hesitancy to kind of launch that at the time was based off of, hey, well, I was the one actually geeked out in this stuff, planning the route. So I was confident that I'm staring at this goat trail. I can find a route in the target. Again, the level of terrain analysis tools we had and terrain models at that time, it'll never be repeated. I don't think the command probably has that level of capability today. It was during that time of war where these outside groups and companies were kind of assisting us in doing that. And the amount of money, I mean, I had the capability to sit in a room like this with 3 guys, get on the phone, have a pred or an air asset fly over a certain area and collect down to 15 centimeter terrain model data. So again, I'm kind of getting off topic here of this whole discussion, but if you look at Google Earth, you have 30 meter increment elevation data. So every 30 meters, there's a change in elevation. That's the model you're looking at. So a cliff looks like a nice slope. We had 1 meter of the entire area of operation, but I could request them to go pull a 15 centimeter. So I could measure a freaking beer can if I wanted to, sitting on a goat trail in a place in deep mountains in a place that we'd never been. So with that confidence of planning those routes with all that equipment that we developed operationally, we were able to push this out. So anyway, we pushed it out and he came back, and the rest is history because we logged over multiple deployments, dozens and dozens of dirt bike infill assaults. And I guarantee to this day, I've logged more time as a point man on a dirt bike than any guy alive during an assault. I'll take the challenge from anybody on that. And when I say assault, I mean planning a long-range infill into heavy terrain at night, helo insert to hit a specific target while they're sleeping, and then leave and get out before daylight hits. So again, I'm very passionate about navigation technology. So skipping over all that, coming up on the tablets when we were kind of evolving that and the smartphone integration into all this and getting serious pushback, and then flipping it around to where it became mission priority number 1 at the command, which then quickly spread throughout the military as going to be something that happens. Of course, I had every person trying to come to me with a ruggedized tablet, which wasn't going to work because their ruggedized tablet was on an Android platform, first of all, and it was about 3 to 4 years behind the current Android phone that came out. So back then, the operating system wouldn't even handle the app. So I'm glossing over a lot here, and I don't want to waste your time with that. My goal of this is obviously to tell a little bit of history for those who care, what's happened over the past couple of years, and where I plan on taking this in the next year. So back on track. with that in mind, again, keep my brain focused here. We quickly knew we needed an app. I was using outside apps, commercial apps at the time, and they were doing the job, but they weren't obviously dependable. They could change at any moment a feature, which would screw up what we were doing. And while I did have direct connections to a lot of these app developers, it wasn't our app, and it wasn't focused on what we were doing. So fast forward, the military, we thought we needed a commercial app, a civilian app. We essentially wanted to replace Garmin. And we wanted an app to do that. That was commercial like Garmin. Big military, of course, had other plans. Big contractors in defense wanted to make and sell us the app versus a off-the-shelf option. So went down that path for a while. I tried my best to lead some of that. I was put in position to lead some of that. And again, it's just dealing with the bureaucracy of defense, big military, trying to get that app going. And it was just, honestly, it was a pain in the ass. And then I had a buddy who said, hey, why don't you just build what you need yourself? Like build an app. And back then, this was 2014. I was like, we can do that? He's like, yeah. And at that time, I had a buddy who had some money on the outside. And he, fortunately, I was coming up on my 2-year mark from retirement. This was 2014. And he gave me an initial seed round to kind of build what was in my head. No questions asked. Came in as an angel investor. A lower partner as far as percentage of the company. And he kind of let me take off on what was in my head, what I needed operationally. So I was coming up on retirement at the time. The command knew what I was doing. I was talking to him about it. And I had a buddy in desert racing, and he was like, well, you should put this in desert racing. You should come check out one of these desert races. And it sounded good at the time because I was like, well, heck, I can't make an app for the military. It would have been conflict of interest. So I was like, all right, well, yeah, that sounds interesting. Let me go check one of these desert races out. I went out to the Baja 1000 in 2014 with, actually went out with RJ, with Ricky Johnson. And I was looking at these trophy trucks, these awesome freaking rigs, running fish finders in them. And I just couldn't understand that for a while anyway. But so yeah, we kind of started building this app and testing it in desert racing because I was still at the command working on the projects there. And I was just trying to keep everything separated with no conflict there. And then coming up on retirement, I moved. Once I retired, I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona for 2 years. 2016, let's see here, my notes here. 2016, went out to Arizona. Started an office there. Got a little bit more investment from my business partner. And when I say a little in the grand scheme of tech companies, we didn't get anything. And this thing spread through desert racing through those years like wildfire. Zero marketing. I was just out there repping it and ran into most of you probably paying attention to this video. I ran into a lot of you out there. Coming from where I did, I wasn't trying to sell you anything. I wasn't trying to sell you snake oil. I wasn't another tire company or a shock company trying to say my option's the best. I honestly didn't give a crap. I was using desert racing as a test bed. And I think a lot of you will realize that. A lot of you became friends. And again, the app just took off like crazy in desert racing by itself, which led to me building the hardware to put the packages in your race cars and all this other stuff. I was, from 2016 to 18 in Arizona, I was training a race team or a group of people, desert folks, almost every weekend. We were selling bigger contracts to race teams to load out their entire fleet of chase trucks, pre-runner, race car, helicopter. and then I was training those folks. Those contracts are what allowed me to fund and build the rest of the features in the LEADNAV for everybody else. So yeah, 2016 to 18, while I was in Phoenix, Arizona, I mean, things were just rocking and rolling. The growth that we had in hardware sales, app sales, I had a team, small team there. I had, during all this time, by the way, I've had app development firms paying them, $20,000 a month. I've had full-time coders working with me, multiple guys throughout those years. Lots of money spent on app development. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar app that we bootstrapped with the money that we were making from these bigger contracted desert race builds and some of these other outside groups. I'm not going to get into a lot of them, but we also catered heavily to a lot of security teams, unique security teams, a lot of professionals that rely on navigation and coordination off the grid during their operations, those types of folks. Those larger contracts were funding this entire app for desert racing. In fact, when we built Pre-Runner during that time, I mean, we're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a capability of pre-running that, let's be real, maybe less than 1,000 people a year really take seriously. And really take seriously for like one or two events. The Baja 1000, maybe the 500. And then later on would be the King of the Hammers. A couple other races in there, but really your hardcore pre-runners that really put the time in, you're building a multi-million-dollar app that costs $20 in the App Store with only a $250 subscription to Pro Pack for less than 1,000 people a year. It's not possible. Hence the contracts, these bigger builds, and what was really paying this, funding this company, was people willing to pay me to consult and train them on all this equipment. The main money, the main revenue was coming from me training and consulting these groups. Period. Going out of 2018, let's be real, I was living in a camper with a wife, 3 kids, 3 teenagers, and 2 dogs. Yes, I had a big office headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, but we were living in a camper. And it got to a point where I was like, we've been East Coast our whole lives. We're like, where do we want to end up? We've been through 21 years of military life. Going back during the last 10 years of that, I was home about 4 to 5 weeks a year. That's it. For 10 years straight. So it was always in our mind, where are we going to settle? Where are we going to settle in at? And while I love all you desert racers, and I love the desert, and I love coming out there to play around, I'm an East Coaster. And it led us right back here. In 2018-19, we moved back to the East Coast. After shopping around at multiple places, we looked at Austin, Texas. We looked at a couple locations, but we moved right back where it all started. Right back here in the Outer Banks, northern Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I put an office actually across the border in Virginia. 2019, I came back here the first month I came back here. Just kind of word of mouth spread. Again, 0 marketing budget, just word of mouth from people who use the app. It spread that I was back in town. And I'm be honest, I pulled $250,000 worth of contracts out of 3 contracts worth $250,000 within the first month I was here. And they were all 3 to very different niche markets. I'll say the one was military. The one was security. And I pulled a big motorsports contract during that time with one of the big manufacturers out there. Just say that. And it was becoming clear that this thing was scaling. It needed to be scaled to meet the demand. So we got a lot of attention at that time. I had acquisition offers pending at that time from multiple different groups. I mean, completely different niche groups were looking to acquire us at that time. And kind of backing up on my business partner and my angel investor. This was Joe Clark. He was a friend to the command when I kicked this off, a friend to me. Just a wild man who honestly didn't care what I did with his investment money. He just wanted to help me transition out of the military. He honestly saved my life. He kept my brain busy after all that with LEADNAV. And he gave all of us this opportunity to kind of grow this. So he little backstory on him. He had a lot going on. So he was pretty hands off again. He didn't care what I did with the initial round, but it was clear through his business advisors and what was going on that this thing needed help. It needed to scale quickly. I had investors coming to me at the time offering millions of dollars. And Joe, just to put some kind of context in here, Joe, with his small, like 12-man company, invented the winglet, the wing flares on every airliner. Winglet Joe. So, you know, he didn't see this in the beginning, but his business advisors told him of the possibility of this thing going very big, very quickly. Again, I sought out to build a better GPS UI, a better GPS interface. Not to get mixed up here, but every other app in existence is not a GPS. It is more of it. They've turned into data collection mapping devices where they make their full money, a lot more than me. They make their full money on collecting your data, consolidating your data, making trails out of your data, and selling your data for marketing purposes. That's their main bread and butter. Whereas I wanted to build a GPS interface. I just wanted to evolve the basic GPS that could be used for anything. It could take the place of a Garmin. I just wanted to basically improve upon what we were using in the past with Garmin to take all of our mission planning in the field. Yeah, I get sidetracked there with what this was, but that's kind of where my head was at in all this. So very quickly we realized we needed to scale this. The demand was higher than I could handle. We were already getting acquisition offers, and if we honestly would have scaled, or like my partners, teams told me that we built the best capability there is, but we need to put asses in seats. That was his term. He's like, you don't have asses in seats. You have the best capability, but you didn't put asses in seats. Basically build a company around this capability. So we needed to do that. And it took some, we were back and forth on this for a few years, and Joe finally realized it. And he was coming all in on that. I mean, we were ready to match what these people were willing to invest in it and get this thing off the ground. Which kind of restructured things. Joe came in at 49%. He was all in. And I owned 51. All right. Now here's where things get interesting and kind of where things shifted. My mindset when I got out of the military was go, go, go. Like, this thing's got to grow. Let's go. Like, let's kill it. Let's build business. So at the time, these contracts, like I said, these big contracts had nothing to do with desert racing. But at the core, desert racing, you guys have helped kind of test bed this. And we need those big contracts to keep this app going for the individual in desert racing, because the individuals in desert racing can't fund this alone. So at the time, I made a big shift. Well, we need to focus on these big contracts. I need to train and consult these groups. And that's where we were going. this was around, this was all happening around 2020. And then, well, things kind of got twisted a little bit. Went to hell quick. Let's see here. It was almost too much to even wrap my brain around today. But let's just start with my house that we found here, back here in North Carolina, that we were, raising still teenagers in. Got totally destroyed in a storm. Neighbor's tree, our tree took out our neighbor's house. The other neighbor's tree took out our house. Totaled our house. So this put us out into a rental property dealing with insurance claims for a year solid during all this growth time. So we're living in a rental, dealing with taking the kids to school. It's a pain in the ass. Worked out, got the house rebuilt, but it was a pain in the ass. Thankfully, that happened, and that kept me busy for a year. I couldn't leave here. I couldn't come out there and train y'all. I couldn't see y'all 2020. So that kind of wrapped up, and then COVID hit. The pandemic hit. A lockdown, again, what was our bread and butter, me training folks and consulting. Totally locked that down. Actually locked down half of those contracts, because half of those contracts we pulled the first month we were here were training eccentric. I mean, the main contract was me showing up, training these people, mission planning, navigation, coordination, all that stuff. So that was instantly shut down for all of us for a year. During that time, like I said, we were getting ready to dump a significant amount of money into LEADNAV to scale with my now 49% business partner, Joe. And unfortunately, he passed away. He was up there in age a little bit, but yeah, unfortunately, he passed away during that time, right when we were finally about to get this thing kicked into gear. I'll go forward on that, but with everything that Joe had, his estate, they had up to 3 years to basically decide on what they were going to do with this company, which to them and Joe's entire assets, this was just small. And again, we haven't scaled it yet, so it just kind of got pushed to the side. Luckily, I had friends with the estate that knew me and knew where Joe's heart was with this company and myself. That helped out later on. But during that time, just got done with a year of the house being destroyed. Just to recap, COVID hit, locked down all training for a year or more. Killed a lot of our income right there. My lease was about to expire. So at that time, I was like, well, while this whole pandemic's going on, I'm going to pull back into my house. No need to have this big classroom and shop, this office in town. I'll just pull it back here into the house, which I then built this shop around it, so I can just run it right here in my backyard. And then dealing with all that, finally I was like, well, I need to get back out there. So I drove across country in, man, I'm trying to get my years right, but it was after COVID, when things were opening back up. I drove out west by myself in my truck, in my trailer, to go to the King of the Hammers. And I was there for like a day, 2 days maybe, setting up. And then literally we knew my son at the time, who was 14, we knew he was having some health things we were trying to figure out for that, that entire year as well. Which I got a phone call while I was cross country by myself in the winter, with snow on the roads. I got a phone call that our son had stage 4 cancer, which, yeah, needless to say, I cannonball ran it back home here to the East Coast, I think in record time. Luckily, I made it because I was in a bad place just in my head and just hauling ass back here, which then led to a year of battling cancer with my son. And I didn't leave. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to my best friends during that time. So I just, this company, I definitely didn't do anything with this company. I was shut down mentally for a good year, battling that with him and my family. So again, it's still a big blur looking back at it. I'll add some small things in there too that just kind of adds to the pile up again, but letting out my life story here. But at that time, right before all this, my kids got me a puppy, a new therapy dog for me to take to work with me, kind of be with me on my trips. Well, that dog ended up having epilepsy or severe seizures. It's actually a giant schnauzer. And within a year, I had a 100-pound puppy that was violently having seizures 3 to 4 times a day. So my drive back, we kind of knew we were trying to everything with her. We kind of knew, getting ready to battle cancer with my son, that we had to call that as well. So we had to put down my dog, which sucks. Because I love animals more than people. Won't get into that, but anyway. Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on during that time, shifting my mindset as well. The company's in lockdown because my partner, it was literally in lockdown because of COVID. My partner's death at 49% locked up the company, so we couldn't scale it for 3 years. Battling cancer with my son, who's, doing great now. He's getting fit. He's getting strong. Found out later he has celiac and Crohn's. So add that to the fact that here we are, my body, after everything I've done at 47, just exploded on me. Herniated back, shoulder injuries, pain, that all hit me in the past year. So looking back at all that chaos, the mind shift that was happening to me mentally to spend more time with my family. I wasn't at a race. I went to the Baja 1000, I believe, a couple of years ago. But other than that, I haven't been to anything in years since COVID, since 2021. But it's you desert racers that kept this thing going during that time. I mean, we obviously built a capability that works. We never really marketed to begin with. So I just want to thank you all for keeping it going, because it's you professional off-roaders, desert racers, co-pilots hit me up during that time being like, hey, and finding the app on your own, because I wasn't marketing it all and I wasn't there, and saying, oh, this is awesome, and pushing it to your friends, pushing it to your other racers. I mean, the best marketing I had was you all using the app during that time and spreading it, because I was shut down. So thank you to all you all for keeping that going, which puts me back to where we're at today, I guess now, finally, after that rambling. All my kids are out of school, so we're open nesters now. As of last year, after dealing with the estate and them being awesome in all this, first of all, I now own 100% of LEADNAV. So I'm free and clear to do anything I want with this company. I could get more investors. I could get more partners. But where I'm at mentally, pulling back into my home here with my family, is I just want to keep building a capability that professionals appreciate. Like every one of you still listen to me ramble right now on this camera. I want to keep that capability going for y'all. I want to be cautious in scaling back up too quickly. I want to get those bigger contracts because we need them. I mean, right now I'm sustaining off of Desiree sales and you all for spreading it. But without those bigger contracts, I can't add features. I can't add development unless I go out and get an investor. And honestly, unless I find somebody like Joe who was willing to let me kind of run with it, I'm kind of hesitant to bring in an investor because every investor that we had at that time wanted us to become that data collecting, data sucking device that steals your data, sells your data, consolidates your data, and gives your data the law enforcement if they ask for it. And I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of want to stay as a professional GPS and not become a data mapping device like all the rest. And so I'm sitting here right now, and part of me sitting on here rambling is just hearing myself speak about this, put it on paper because I have a general idea of what I want to do. But first, I just want to say thank you to all the desert racers who literally kept this going. I mean, this LEADNAV can't die because of the amount of professionals relying on it right now to run. So that's what motivates me. Every one of your emails I got during that time saying, man, this freaking app's awesome. We love it. At the same time, I'm frustrated because a lot of you are like, hey, can you add this feature? Can you add that feature? I'm like, dude, I'm one guy right now in my shop, in my backyard. I don't have any more employees, which led to a lot more developments. I pulled a lot of the hardware manufacturing in-house, so I'm doing that as well. I'm basically running everything. So now what? Well, this kind of leads to this crazy ass Chase RV that I've been posting. Kind of stoked about. I knew now that my kids are out of school, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable to kind of leave my nest again. And I want to get back out to the desert racers. I want to get back out to all you Raptor rallies and Raptor folks that run LEADNAV, rely on LEADNAV. I love watching those. I want to get out to some of those. I want to get out to these desert races. I want to get back in the pits. I want to mingle with some racers, kind of get this thing going back into the training, the consulting, kind of build your capabilities up. And I want to keep it right now. I want to keep it my overhead low so I can do that and not rely on these huge contracts, hopefully, with outside parties that kind of pull my attention off to the side of that. So yeah, I just want to right now get back out to the events, and that's kind of a recap of the past 30 years, focusing mostly on the past 4, kind of where we've been these past 4 years. And hopefully that covers where I plan on going with it. I plan on getting back out to the events, seeing all my buddies, and seeing you at the races, seeing you at the rallies. I look on doing some training, like open training dates in areas to invite people and kind of get out there and just have some fun and hopefully keep me busy teaching you something. But that's it, folks. That's the whole history right there in a nutshell. Again, there's a lot more. I just glossed over. I don't know. It feels like 100 lifetimes in those 30 years, but that got to this point. But to the folks who know, this app was not developed, as just a thought. There's a lot of history behind this app and capability. If you're still listening to me ramble, I appreciate you. I appreciate your interest in LEADNAV, especially during a time past couple of years where I haven't done anything with it. You all kept it alive. So I appreciate you. And yeah, that's it. I look forward to seeing y'all again.